as we work our way through the next 24 hours, we are going to once again see that as that system moves in, what is the exact location of the threat. And again, I think at least two chances or two rounds that we could see thunderstorms move through, both of which could be severe. We're also going to talk about the strength of the cap with this system. What you're going to notice is that we are going to once again find that the cap on this system is where the mid-level area is seeing some warm conditions, and the warm conditions at the mid-levels of the atmosphere, that's where we're finding again where the air can't rise. We'll explain that coming up, and that's going to play a role in the convection that we could see develop as we move through the afternoon hours. Now, what should you do right now? Well, what you're doing, stay with us for additional updates, and of course stay weather aware, especially on Tuesday as that system moves in. So we know we've got a system moving in. Exact strength of the cap is going to be the one thing, in the location. Now, no big changes here. Our severe weather potential continues to be, once again, across areas of eastern Iowa. The threat itself extends from northern Iowa all back to the south. Now, it's really Tuesday into Tuesday night, so remember, with the two rounds of severe weather potentially moving through, that's where, once again, we are finding conditions that likely could bring some thunderstorms into the area that could cause tornadoes, large hail, and damaging winds. So much like we saw on Friday, all modes of severe weather are certainly a possibility as that system continues to move our way. As you can see, kind of an enhanced area, Highway 20 and points to the south. This is going to be something you're going to want to watch where the warm front sets up. That warm front, south of that is where we'll get that first round of storms moving through, and the second round will come as a cold front pushes across eastern Iowa. Right now, as we take a look at our threats, all threats possible. Now, as far as the large hail, a little bigger threat, I think, of some hail than we saw in the storms last Friday. And then, as you can see, we still have that tornado threat as well south of the warm front. High wind, certainly that's what that second system that kind of moves in, the better chance of some damaging winds. And then as we take a look at the heavy rain threat, really not much. These storms, again, much like the storms we saw last week, are going to be moving pretty fast, about 50 to 70 miles per hour. That in itself leads itself to strong winds, but also, again, doesn't lead itself to a lot of heavy rain. So again, that's the threat. Looks a lot the same, with maybe a little larger hail threat from these storms than we saw in our storms on Friday. There's the setup. Tonight, we've got a warm front to the south, and that front is going to move to the north. You'll notice it as we'll see a pretty good temperature contrast across the state. Along Highway 20 and points to the north, highs tomorrow in the 40s and 50s. South of that, it looks like we are going to see highs probably in the 60s to near, well, maybe even 80 degrees as we approach southern Iowa. Contrast like that in itself lends itself to instability in the atmosphere. Then the area of low pressure and cold front will push through. That'll kind of be that second round of weather that develops. Also, the jet stream right on top of us, that always adds energy. A deep trough bringing that southwest flow across the area, helping that storm system push through and add energy to the storm. So that, again, with us, something we have to contend with as far as the ingredients for the severe weather. Here's how things look right now. There could be some scattered showers overnight tonight. Could there even be a rumble of thunder? Yeah, let's go ahead and just kind of back that up a little bit. Notice the storms that develop mainly just east of us, but that could sneak into maybe Cedar County, Louisa County overnight with possibly a rumble of thunder. Overall, though, we're just going to see some scattered showers possible tonight into tomorrow. Then as we work from noon to about 3 o'clock, it still is pretty quiet. Anytime after about 3 o'clock, I think we're going to watch that area of green that you see down toward Washington. That's kind of the initial area where we're expecting to see some of the showers and storms develop, and as they do, they develop fairly quickly. Now, that area, and we'll move it back for you once again, you can see that that kind of moves right through areas of Johnson, Cedar, Jones, up toward Jackson, southern Dubuque County. That could be a little farther north. It could be a little bit farther toward the east. That's, again, where we're looking at when will that cap break, or will the storms, it will allow that cap to break with the warmth that's out there. We'll be watching that as we head through that time frame. So again, that could be a little farther north and west as well. Don't look at positioning so much as just to see that's kind of that first area. These would be more discrete thunderstorms, not really a line of storms, and along that, that's what gives us more of a tornadic threat with those storms. Then look at Interstate 35 by 6 o'clock. Looks like there's a line of storms that's starting to take shape. Well, indeed, that's the case. Here comes that line of storms. By 9 o'clock, kind of moving through, looks like the Benton County area as well as into Buchanan County, and that line
could contain an isolated tornado, but this would be more of a damaging wind line as it continues to move through, and there could be just an additional line early morning hours as well that kind of develops farther down to the south, as we can see. Oh, that would be overnight into the early morning hours, moving through and pushing quickly into Illinois as we start the morning. So that's why we're saying there's kind of multiple chances that we could see some severe weather in the area. The first chance, though, comes during the afternoon, let's say between about 2 and 6. Now, as we look forward to the setup, this is kind of something we always take a look at. South of that warm front, so wherever that warm front lies, south of it, there's going to be plenty of moisture again. Dew points will likely get into the upper 50s and lower 60s. That's very similar to what we saw last Friday. And we look for some strong winds, and we've got a pretty good east or southeast wind that's going to move in Tuesday and Tuesday night, and at 30 plus miles an hour, there's plenty of wind at the surface, and as you go up to the mid-levels, you'll notice a pretty strong wind out of the southwest. Well, with it from the southwest and the mid-levels, and the southeast from the lower levels, that's that spin that we get because we have wind shear, different directions as we go up in the atmosphere, and that leads to the shear that allows those thunderstorms to rotate. Then we take a look at where our setup for strong storms. Yeah, the instability is there all across eastern Iowa. You do notice certainly southern Iowa, maybe east central areas of Iowa, kind of favored for some of the strongest energy from these storms, and again, that makes sense because that's where the outlook is a bit the highest, but everywhere in eastern Iowa certainly has that possibility. So, severe weather checklist, we want to check it off. We've talked about it. We have shear in the atmosphere. We have lift. We have instability. We have moisture. Now, what could take away from this? Well, take a look. We've talked about the cap, right? So here you go. What is the cap? Well, a capped atmosphere means there's some warm air that's going to prevent the air from continuing to rise, around 10,000 feet, so some mid-levels of the atmosphere. As that warm air starts to rise, it gets up to that warm layer and it can't rise anymore. So you get those clouds to develop some scattered basis, and then guess what? They kind of move out of the area as well. And then they may stay that way. The atmosphere stays capped, they just can't develop thunderstorms. But if that atmosphere becomes uncapped, the warm air can rise freely and thunderstorms can develop very, very quickly. And that's what we'll be watching for later tomorrow into tomorrow evening if we can get some of those thunderstorms to develop. What should you do? Well, first of all, let's remember that know what a county you're in. This is kind of the similar things we told you last week. Be prepared to seek shelter, have an emergency plan ready to go, and have multiple ways to get those alerts. That includes the First Alert Weather app as well as the NOAA Weather Radio. Those of you in Washington County, make sure you are signed up for alerts as well. The sirens in that area in Washington right now, not operable. So make sure you are signed up again for some type of weather alerts. And again, that weather radio is going to be very, very important. Receiving information, multiple ways as we mentioned. You need information everywhere you go, and sirens, of course, are meant to alert you outside, not necessarily inside. Know your alerts, watches that will come out. There could be a tornado watch, means be prepared. Tornado warning, of course, take action. And a tornado emergence would be a rare situation with a very, very large tornado moving through the area. Just kind of keep those terms in mind as we move through. You may hear some of those terms tomorrow, especially as we consider a watch. When a warning is issued, no matter if it's a severe thunderstorm warning or a tornado warning, get to the lowest level of your home, get under something sturdy. Make sure you grab your bike helmet, cover yourself with blankets, pillows, towels, avoid windows and doors and outside walls, and if no basement, get to a small interior room. Inside, of course, is the place to be to find shelter. As you can see, interior rooms are some of the better spots away from any windows that would not be there. Of course, the safest place always to be is in the basement. So definitely you want to keep that in mind as we move forward with this storm system. Let's go ahead and put up Pinpoint Futurecast again, and let's see some of the questions that have come in right now. I see there's a few coming in. Do you think it'd be bad to be super worried? I think we need to consider this again a chance at severe weather. We will see more discrete cells developing. We have to watch to see if there's going to be. Just be prepared, as we always are. There's no difference in Iowa this summer from last summer, the summer before. We always see severe weather move through. Make sure, again, that you are, once again, just prepared if severe weather moves through. We have another graphic that shows different timing for the state. Well, again, as you can see, we kind of move through Pinpoint Futurecast. That first time between 2 and 6, that's kind of the first round. It does look like that would be some of the areas across Highway 20 and points to the south, where we find again, and this would definitely be definitely is going to be east of Interstate 35 at that time, but probably in that higher risk area. And then that second round, as we can see, that moves through even as close to 6 p.m. toward Marshall County maybe, and 6 to maybe 11 o'clock as that line continues to push across eastern Iowa. So that's kind of those 2 rounds that we're looking at with the multiple chances for severe weather. Will the morning rains hold off any severe threat? The morning and noon rain have any severe threat? I don't expect that. I'd expect 2 o'clock or later before we find anything. Debris from Friday's storm may be an issue. I know that was mentioned in the news as well. If it's out there and the winds are strong, certainly that could certainly cause some problems. How bad are the winds going to be Wednesday morning after the storms are over? They'll be gusty, but not quite as bad as we saw behind the storm on Friday. I think wind gusts could be greater than 40 at times as we head into Wednesday morning. And again, yes, don't rely on outdoor sirens. Should we sleep downstairs? It seems like the worst versus overnight for Cedar Rapids. Again, as I said, don't concentrate so much on where that was showing development, but be prepared for 2 potential rounds between about 2 and 6. I would again say along Highway 20, Dubuque to Waterloo and points down to the south, kind of that quadrant in the afternoon. And for the remainder of eastern Iowa and all of eastern Iowa, as that line could push through, that would be as we move through the late part of the evening, early part of the overnight hours. So again, that's kind of the time to watch. Again, along that line, are there some chances of tornadoes? There are. There are brief spin-up tornadoes that can occur along that line. The main threat, though, would come from damaging winds if it moves into the area. Let's see, any other questions? No, I think we've got pretty much all the questions answered that you asked. I appreciate you watching and stuff. Again, this will be updated tomorrow. We're going to have another Facebook Live coming up tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock. Kyle will be in, and then we'll have another update potentially during the afternoon, depending on when those storms develop with Jan. So certainly you'll want to watch that. This is, again, the latest from the Storm Prediction Center. And again, that red area, that's probably the area we have to watch, that 2 to 6 o'clock time frame. And then everyone, and again, that's north to south, east to west across eastern Iowa for that second round of severe weather that moves through. Just kind of run through Pinpoint Futurecast once again for some timing. We could see, the supercellular development. That would be this first afternoon, David, the first afternoon round that develops between 2 and 6. Again, you see, isolated activity, but that's kind of what we'd expect. Could be kind of some scattered thunderstorms that move through and develop into tornadoes. They're going to be moving through fast again, very, very rapidly, and then there comes that secondary line. This would be more of a damaging wind threat as it moves through during the late evening and overnight hours of our Tuesday into the day on Wednesday. It will be interesting to see what SBC says tomorrow morning, see if anything changes, if they adjust that at all, and that's why we tell you, make sure you are staying up to date on the latest area of the forecast. And right now, again, the best advice is for you to just be prepared to make sure you know where you need to go if severe weather is going to threaten. So again, just to kind of sum things up, we have 2 lines of severe weather that are expected, or chances, one between about 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. Probably later part of that time frame right now. The way it looks depends on how long that atmosphere can stay capped, as we talk about, and then that second more linear line that will move through with the cold front, and that'll happen late tomorrow evening and then continue into the early part of the overnight hours. Those are kind of the 2 points that we could see that severe weather once again push across eastern Iowa. We'll have an update certainly on our newscasts all night long, and also as we move through the newscast tomorrow. But then again, join us for another live here on YouTube coming up at 9 o'clock tomorrow with Kai, and then during the mid part of the afternoon, give us a final update with Jan as we watch those storms continue to develop. Really, thank you for watching, and again, as always, keep it here on your trusted local news source, KCRG TV 9.